Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Today's shiur is sponsored by Gedalia Pollak in honor of our Rabbi Yosef Warhman, Ben Jack Warhman, and in honor of my cousin, Eli Tropper. You guys are familiar with Eli Tropper. He's on Zoom every day. He was running for president of MDY, but then he backed out for some reason. In honor of my cousin Eli Tropper, is available as a substitute Magid shiur anytime you need. He's a great speaker. I'm not going to go into detail, but this, to me, is Hashgacha Pratis Shein Kamayu. Last night I received an email complaining about the treatment of this individual, and I think it's mamish the opposite, literally the opposite of the emes. How people, and then over here, just a few hours later, this person is sponsoring in honor of Eli Tropper, who's available as a substitute Magid shiur anytime you need. It's unbelievable. I know I can't go into real detail, but V'amevin Yoven. For those who need to understand, understand. Those who wrote the email lechatchila, those who are upset about certain things. Sponsored by Yosef and Malky, Mevorach, nishmas, Menachem Mendel ben Peretz. Today's is yartzeit. Also, somebody's on Zoom all the time. Where's Reb Jonathan? He's not here today. Dear Aveli, you're going to love this. Since so many people write in with their various shilas, and since you're an expert in learning, business, family advice, travel, and style, and staying humble among other things, I think one of the emails each day should be in the style of Dear Abby Letters. Jonathan Stefansky. Yeah. In that vein, I recently found out one of my old high school buddies was learning the daf, so I suggested you check out your shiur. He watched a couple of shiurim and loved it. The problem is that he feels badly switching from his current Magid shiur. What would you advise? Signed, Magid shiur Confusion in Teaneck. Jonathan Stefansky. Whoever wants to know who Jonathan Stefansky is, check up the shiur Erev Purim. Yeah, it was Erev Purim? No, it was Rosh Chodesh Adar. Rosh Chodesh Adar. Great stuff. Well, he knows the answer. The answer is you should watch both. Yep. Dear Rebelli, you hear Naftali, you hear what's going on here? Have a shiloh. I'm one of the email guys. On the tzad that I'm not considered a member of the shiur, what about if I also tune in to the last few minutes for the pre-shachar Shmooze, where I get my favorite cousin, Eli Tropper. I didn't even chap. 3 emails about Eli Tropper in one day. Unbelievable. Okay, it just goes to show. Does the extra time add to my credibility? All kidding aside, what really prompted me to write in is that you mentioned my dear Chav. I'm not kidding. I did not ask these people to write in. 2 people, 3 people total. What really prompted me to write in is that you mentioned my dear Chav Rabbi Yosef Warhman, who is finishing Shas for the 4th time. Oh, maybe it's the same email. It is the same email. Sorry, I can't count it as twice. It's the same email. It's the person who sponsored. Okay, I just want to say, I know him personally and can attest that he works extremely hard. There's a very big masmid with tremendous midas. Something that is just like, it doesn't just happen, it's hard work. Probably also his great father, Jack Warhman, who you mentioned. Also, right after mentioning Reb Warhman, you touted the Merkez Daf Parsha sheet. I'm the one who sends out Reb Warhman's weekly emailed Parsha sheet called Yosef Das, based on a sefer, which is the basis for a sefer. Perhaps it could be incorporated into the Merkez Daf newsletter. You got to speak to Moshe Hirsch. Please let me know, and I'll be happy to add you to the email list. Lastly, your incredible charts, props, jokes, straightforward explanations are always immensely appreciated. May Hashem continue to give you bracha and chovas hadas to continue spreading Torah. Sponsoring, listen to this is for you, Noam. Sponsoring the cover of Yosef Warhman and Eli Tropper. See my submitted sponsorship via your website. Gedalia Pollak, Jackson, New Jersey. No, not Lakewood. I don't want to be considered compared to a jungle. Tehillim heard it. It was heard far and wide. The shtach about Lakewood. Rabbi Sai, here we are. Daf Mem Tes Amud Aleph. 12 lines down. Boy Rav Papa. Those who aren't here, they lose out on Matzah Shabbos. You got to be here Matzah Shabbos. You got to be here every day. Shalom. Boy Rav Papa. So continuing with the shilas that Rav Papa had. Chafan Chaveroi. One Kayin Gadol did Chafina. Then, for some reason, they kicked him out. Let's say somebody like Aravi Echad spit at him by mistake. As they were talking, a little bit spit. So he's out, next one comes in. Or no, it's probably not the Shaila. So he has chafina, and now he gives it to his friend. At the end of the day, the Torah says, you should have full hands, and you have full hands. Or perhaps no, you need v'lakach v'hevi. Now, if you just read it as is, it's slightly hard to understand the question. It says in the pasuk, v'lakach v'hevi. So why would I think you don't need v'lakach v'hevi? Why would I think you don't need the original kohen to bring? It says v'lakach, he should take, v'hevi, and he should bring. Oh, let me show you the answer. The answer is over here. If you see the pasuk, it's beautiful. It says in the beginning of the pasuk, "V'lokach meloya machto gach leyesh." The v'lokach goes on the gach leyesh, and then it says malam ezbeva, and then it says umeloy chafnav ketayres. So perhaps the v'lokach has nothing to do with the ketayres. The v'lokach has to do with the coals, and then it finishes it off v'hevi. So is it a sandwich? V'lokach v'hevi goes on everything in the pasuk, including meloy chafnav. Or perhaps no. Maybe the lakach is only on the gach leyesh. That's the Gemara's kasha. If you see the pasuk inside, it's a beauty. No, it makes sense. It doesn't say v'lakach v'hevi k'tayres. It says v'lakach gach leyesh. And in the continuation of the pasuk, it says k'tayres. Boy Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asked the kasha. In Ramah Gimel, there's a street called Rival. Rival is Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Ramah Bet. What did I say? Oh, yeah, very big difference. Bet. Big difference. Those who know. What happens if the kohen who does chafina, unlike what I said before, I'm now regretting what I said before that somebody spit at him. He did chafina and then he dies. So, can somebody else take over? Here you have a dead kohen with a bunch of ketayres. Can you take over? Now I was bothered by why is it different than what we asked before? Yeah, but over there also kohen gadol the chafina. Chav and chaver is a kohen gadol. Yeah. Why not? Kohen, regular kohen. Over here, it's even worse. It's like an intim tzalema kind of thing. He's not even around. Okay, different things they say. I thought they talk about it. They do discuss it. I thought it has to do that there's no shlichus here. You can't even do a shlichus. The guy that did it is gone, or there's no chafina that's roi. The chafina that was done to begin with is not available to continue. So maybe it's even worse. Okay. So who asked the question? Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Who answers? So Rashi explains, look at Rabbi Shua ben Levi. He's mechaven or fakert. Me, I, Rabbi Chanina, I'm mechaven to the Rishonim. Baruch shekivanti, he says. I just found out that Rabbi Shua ben Levi asked this question. Guess what? I also asked it. And I'm mechaven to unbelievable kasha, to the Rishonim. Now, who's the Rishonim? The Rishonim is just 20 years older than him. Or maybe 20 years younger, as the Gemara is going to ask. Says the Gemara, Lememra, the Rabbi Shua ben Levi kashish. From here you see, that Rabbi Chanina said, I was mechaven to the question of the elder, of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. In other words, Rabbi Shua ben Levi is older than me. Baruch shekivanti to him. In those days, they said, if we are like that, they are like that. We're nothing compared to just one generation before. Shua ben Levi. Ask the Gemara, how could that be? We see for a fact that Chanina seems to be older than Shua ben Levi. But we're just talking about years here. We're not talking about hundreds of years. We're talking about 20 years maybe. Rabbi Yishua ben Levi, li hitir Rabbi Chanina lishtois shachalayim b'Shabbos. Rabbi Yishua ben Levi says, I got a heter to drink this stuff, shachalayim juice. You make juice out of this. I got a heter from Rabbi Chanina. So what's the raya that Rabbi Chanina is older? So you would say, the pashta says when you first read this is, well, Rabbi Shmuel Levi went to ask a question. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky doesn't say, oh, I got a heter from Rabbi Pessin. It's the opposite. Rabbi Pessin says, I get a heter from Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky. Rabbi Pessin is somebody from our shul here. Okay, so if that's what I thought, but Rashi says, yeah, but usually it goes by age. Usually it goes like that. It's hardly ever the opposite. But Rashi says different. Rashi says because he called him Rebbe Chanina. From the fact that Rabbi Shmuel ben Levi called Rebbe Chanina, and if he was greater than him, he wouldn't call him Rebbe Chanina. He'd call him, I got a heter from Chanina. Now, why does Rashi say that and not our pshat? Because as we continue the story here, we see that Rebbe Chanina was a doctor. So if Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, I got a heter from Avi Factor, it makes sense. He got a heter from a doctor. Even though, maybe, I don't know, I didn't give him a bechina, but maybe he's not as great as Reb Chaim Kanievsky, but it makes sense Reb Chaim Kanievsky will talk about Dr. Factor like that. So we're going to see that Reb Chanina was a doctor, so maybe it's not a raya that he said, I got a heter, because we're talking about medicine here. So that's where Rashi is medayik in the Gemara, because he called him Rebbe Chanina.
Because of this specific subject matter, or in general?
No, in this specific subject matter.
Like consulted with a doctor.
Right. It's this specific. Here, we're talking about medicine. We are talking about medicine, and the answer was about medicine. So he got a heter from a doctor. Ask the Gemara, Lishto is pshita. What do you need a heter from a doctor? This nan, on Shabbos, you're allowed to eat any food or drink, even if you have kavana that it's for medicine, as long as it's food that nobody can realize. Let's say berekes is really good for your heart. So you're allowed to eat it. You're trying to heal yourself, but nobody realizes. They think you're eating berekes for fun. So you call so what's the big deal? Why can't you drink shachalayim? The question was, could I grind it down on Shabbos? And we know, why can't you make medicine on Shabbos? Because you might come to grind. So certainly you can't grind. How can you grind? Because it's a chayil shesh b'sakana. So idik is sakanta mishrushari. Ask the Gemara, hechidami. Idik is sakanta mishrushari. If the guy's really sick, he's going to die, then of course you could grind. You can do anything. You could grind. You have to grind. Vida like a sakanta meisarasa. And if it's not a chayil shesh b'sakana, stam, shtickle headache, whatever, you're going to start grinding now shachalayim on Shabbos. Lo'ilam dik is sakanta. There is a sakana. Is this one of these, what do they call them? Not the Dr. Factor medicine, the other stuff. The homeopathic medicine. Is this a fake? Some guy invented it? And really, and indeed, you should not be Mechal Shabbos for it? Homeopathic stuff that don't work? I don't want people to say homeopathic works. This it rather doesn't. I'm not going to go into that. The Rosh homeopathic. I love to push those buttons. I love it.
Statistics will be 20%
Where is he? There's a guy that sits here. Doesn't take he took this guy in Telstone that says if you just eat this and that, you don't get corona.
He's out sick.
Says Dr. Factor, he's out sick. Great. No, he actually had a grandson yesterday, on Friday. Shouldn't say his name. Okay. Erase. So, does this thing work or not? Should I be Mechal Shabbos or not? And that's what he asked Reb Chanina. And he answered him, yes, I know for a fact this is good stuff. Shachalayim is going to heal you. You could indeed grind it on Shabbos. we're almost losing focus here. The point of the Gemara is that Reb Chanina was older than Reb Shimon Levi. So then the question is, why did Reb Chanina say, as mechaven to the kasha of the Rishonim? The Rishonim is who? Reb Shimon Levi was younger than him. It's not Rishonim. It's Achrayim. Now, the Gemara keeps on going. Why do you ask Reb Chanina? Who do you ask? You don't ask a gadol. The Gemara says here, when you have a kasha in medicine, you go to a doctor. You don't go to the Gedalia. What happens to be is a gadol that it's also a doctor. He understood the stuff. You see, people used to ask him. They used to come to him for refuah. What happens if I get whacked, kicked by a white mule? What do I do? Chanina say, just say goodbye to everybody. You're not going to live. So I have a couple pictures here. This is what a mule's kick looks like. In Hebrew, it's called a zugiyah. I was zoich to get one once when I was a kid in Mevorach. It's very, very dangerous and very, very painful. You think that they kick with their front foot. No, they kick with their rear feet and both of them. Well, usually, sometimes just with one. They're very accurate. Get you right in the face if they want to. That's one. I did a little bit of research. I was looking for the mule kick, and this is what I came up with. It's actually a type of a beer, and this is the only one I got. It's called mule kick. Now, mules. I want to talk a little bit about mules, because the other day we had an unbelievable email from, what was his name? Abe Aberbeck? Akasha. He asked I said that from Akasha, you don't die from Akasha. And he asked Akasha from the Shiftei Kat that they married 11 of their brothers' twins, and then that number didn't appear when they came into Mitzrayim, 70. So Rashi killed them off, and he said, you see from here that from Akasha, Shtar Binya. Then I had a great teretz. And I was thinking this morning that based on my unbelievable analogy, I love my analogy. Nachal, what's the analogy? That the kids play these video games. They play basketball games. Let's call it basketball. So you get to pick a team. And you pick one player, and that player has an unbelievable outside shot. That's his pro. But then you look, his power when it comes to defense is very, very weak. So then you pick another guy that's a very good defender, but is a terrible shot. Then you can pick a guy that he's a great rebounder, and he can't do this. And I tell you that's life. That's really life. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave everybody a package. They have pros and they have cons. A guy he's like an unbelievable genius, but he's on the spectrum. He's very good looking, but he's a terrible personality. People have milas and they have chesroinas. So then I have kasha.
What are your kasha?
Not going to repeat that. Mama's a dumb question. So I had a kasha. What about Kobe Bryant? He has everything. He shoots from the outside, from the inside. He could dunk. He could jump. He's the best defender, everything. And the teretz is the kasha. He died. He got killed in a helicopter crash. That's the teretz. So you see from here, Rabbi side, from a kasha start minyo. Why am I bringing this up here? What's a mule? A mule is a creation. They take a horse, a male horse, and a female donkey. And what comes out? Unbelievable bria. It's much stronger than, you hear, Eitan. You hear? I can't hear, but I hope you could hear. That is the grinding of the beans, the frothing of the milk. That should go on a clock. So you take the horse and the mule and the donkey. What do you get? You get an animal that's way stronger than a donkey, can carry much more, go a lot longer, needs less food, is much smarter. I'm just telling you what I saw on Google. Much smarter, lives much longer. It's called a mule. But what's its chesaron? Sterile. Can't have children. So here you see that you saw it. You have everything. Oh, mamish, the whole package. No. The ikar is missing. You could look from the side and say, wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave this thing everything. No. And by the way, you know why a mule can't have kids? Because a horse has 64 chromosomes and a donkey has 62. Combine the two, it's 63. Doesn't work. It's unbelievable. Zok the Gemara. So we have this Preda Levana. We're going off topic here. Like almost. Preda Levana. V'chaya. Never happened. So at the end you see that Reb Chanina is a doctor. People used to come to him with the injuries of the Preda Levana. Did anybody ever, they come to you with the Preda Levana? No. Today it's cars. I got hit by a white Mercedes. What happens? You see that people do live from getting whacked by a white mule. Says the Gemara, Besumkon inu, when I skipped. Oh, sorry. You see that people do live. B'chayis is Lashon Nekeva, is referring to the wound. The wound won't heal. You see that the wound does heal. We're talking about a red mule. A red mule, and the feet, the bottom, are white. So when you have red and white, that's a very bad combination. That's the one. I saw somebody in the back of the Masifta says, it was a Chassidish Vart in the Chassidish section called Kafta Mevorach. He says that this is an apikairis. The Gemara says apikairis can't do tshuva. But Chazina that they do tshuva. If you dress like a from person, but you're an apikairis, you won't be able to do tshuva. And this is like a chazer with white feet that shows his feet. So kids as bar. Next, Mikol Mokaim Shmamin the Rabbi Chanina Koshish. At the end of the day, after all this white mule, red mule, the bottom line is Rabbi Chanina is older than Reb Shimon Levi, because Reb Shimon Levi called him Rebbe. Elachi Kamar. Sheilasan, the question that Reb Shimon Levi asked, Kisheila Shel Rishonim. It's like my question. I'm older than him. Not the opposite. Not that I was mechaven to him. He was mechaven to me, and I'm a Rishonim. I'm older than him. Ask the Gemara, Umi Omar Reb Chanina Hachi. Reb Chanina really say this? V'Omar Reb Chanina bepar v'loy b'damish par. So this is referring to if the kohen dies. The kohen gadol shechs a cow, the bull, and then he dies. So as we're going to see, machloikis. So you cannot bring the blood or continue the avodah of this cow. It wasn't shechted by him. Kohen Gadol A shechted a bull, then he dies. Kohen Gadol B cannot step in and just take the blood and continue going as if nothing happened. So Memela, what would come out that you cannot do the chafina of the guy that dies? Why is Reb Chanina saying that you could? Why not? V'amar Reb Chanina, listen to this chap. If you do Ketairis before the par, if you do the chafina before you shech the bull, no good. So what comes out? Comes out like this. Very, very good. Reuven is a kohen gadol. He did shchita. Reuven is the kohen gadol. He did chafina. That's the order. Shchita, then chafina. Then Reuven dies. So we want to use Reuven's par. Sorry, you can't. Chafina. You want to use Reuven's chafina. And then Shimon goes and shechs the par. So it comes out that the chafina is first, shchita second. But we said that it has to be shchita first, chafina second. What does Chanina say? If you do chafina, the red, before the light blue, it doesn't work. So how does Rabbi Chanina say that you could do chafina one from the other? You could use the chafina of the other kohen gadol. Since Rabbi Shimon Levi asked this question, Rabbi Shimon Levi, from the fact that he asked, could I use the chafina of kohen number one? Obviously doesn't hold of this thing that has to go in order. You can do chafina before par. And according to what he holds, that's he's mechaven to the shaila of previous generations who asked the same shaila because they held that way. But there's a machlokes whether or not, as we're going to see soon, could you use the par of the first one or do you have to redo it? My havayalo. What happens if Kohen Gadol A does a chafina? Hey, laser, How you doing? So what happens if Kohen Gadol A does chafina and then he dies? Could Kohen Gadol B use that chafina? Omer Papa. We actually brought this sugya under a different context, but we brought it. It's going to be almost the same sugya. If you hold that the Kohen Gadol has to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and do chafina, meaning he has to take the kaf. The kaf, remember, it's in his mouth, it's full, and he has to pour it into his hands. That's chafina for the second time. Because the first time was the chafina he did outside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. They brought him a shovel, and he goes like this. And then he pours that into a bowl, and then from the bowl he does it into his hand. So into his hand is the second time he's doing it. So if I'm doing chafina for the second time, says the Gemara now, according to this man, the Omar, then what's the problem? The Kohen Gadol did chafina in the Azara. The Torah says you should do chafina. It doesn't say where. It says do chafina, go inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So, Kohen Gadol number 1 did chafina, and then he died. So Kohen Gadol number 2 did chafina in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so he should be yartzeit. What's the problem? At the end of the day, he did chafina. It doesn't say where. However, if he's not required to take the spoon and fill up his hands with the chafina, then you're going to have a good kash. Ravuna, the son of Yeshua, tells Rav Papa, Adrab. No. The opposite of what you're saying. If you have to do it for the second time, then another Kohen Gadol cannot do it. Why? Beautiful. His hand has to be a certain measurement. Every Kohen has his measurement. And we learned he cannot miss one granule, even one granule. So let's say his hand is, I don't know, not Shaquille O'Neal, some other hand. He has a hand, whatever his size is, 4. The other guy is going to be 3.9 or 4.1. It's impossible that the other guy is going to have the same exact size hand, even if they're identical twins. They grow up, it's going to be slightly different. So how is he going to take the spoon and pour it into his hand? It's going to be perfectly the size that he needs. It's impossible. So in Mela, you have another problem. In theory, you're right, but I have a technical problem. It's not going to be the same amount. But however, if he doesn't have to repeat it, then I'm going to ask the question: could Kohen Gadol A do the chafina, then dies, and then Kohen Gadol B will take over? So what's the shaila? Do you need to do it again or not? So the Taisa Rosh explains beautifully. What's the Gemara's kasha? What's behind the question? Do you have to do another chafina or not? Because, as we mentioned yesterday, it's very good. Do me a favor, give me where's that guy? If it's not here, you see it? The stick with the cup. So, yesterday we learned, thank you. Yeah, you hold on to it. Yesterday we learned that the Torah says, we had this also on Friday, the Torah says that a Kohen Gadol should do chafina. But then we had a technical problem. How is he going to do chafina and bring the coals at the same time? He can't put it on top of his hands, he can't do this, he can't do 2 trips. So what do you do? It says he takes the chafina out, pours it into a bowl, and then he carries both of them in, the coals and the ketores. Says the Taisa Rosh, that's the kasha. But the Torah at the end of the day says he should do it from his hands into the ketores, into the gechalim. He should take the ketores with his hands and pour it into the coals. It doesn't say in the Torah you should pour it out of a kli into the coals. So maybe the Torah wants you, once you get to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, to start over again. Take the kli, pour it into your hands. Now you have hands, go like this. Open up your hands into the coals. Or maybe not. Maybe you did it before and that's enough. That's the Gemara's kasha. I thought it was beautiful. It explains very nicely. You have to do chafina because it's a technical issue, but the Torah says, I'm sorry, you have to do the kli because it's technical, but the Torah says you should do chafina. What?
difference if it goes into another kohen?
That's a different kasha. That is the other sugya. Another kohen is another kohen because he didn't do it. It says in Torah v'lakach. He has to take it, maybe not. All right. Says the Gemara, Tashma, have a raya. Kach hoisa midasa. Remember, in the Mishnah it says that regardless of the size of the kohen's hands, you could be a tiny little kohen, that's good enough for chafina. You could be a giant kohen, that's your chafina. And then the Mishnah finishes off, Kach hoisa midasa. That was the measurement. So Gemara says, those are extra words. What does it mean? My love, kashem shemidasa mibachutz, kach midasa mibifnim. Perhaps the Torah is saying that you have to do chafina for another time. What else did the Mishnah mean? Kach hoisa midasa. That you have to repeat it. The Mishnah says it doesn't matter how big your hands are. It's good. It's good chafina. So then why does the Mishnah add kach hoisa midasa? To tell you that you have to do chafina again. So Gemara, no. So we had this the exact reverse. Dilma shimrotza lasis midos. Maybe if you want to make a kli, you could. Inami, because we had this Gemara on the sugya. Could you make a kli for chafina? And the Gemara brought this as a raya. You can't. And I explained then that the Gemara is just saying there's no raya in any direction. You can't prove that there's a kli because then I'll say that it means no. It doesn't mean that a kli. It means that you could do it a second time. You can't prove that you can do it a second time because I'll say the Mishnah means it's a kli. So there's no proof. Dilma, maybe. Maybe what the Mishnah means, those three words, means that I could make a kli. Oh, I have a raya, you can make a kli. No, maybe means that I can do it for a second time. Oh, so I have a raya, this is the second time. No, maybe means it's a kli. Means that you, like we said a second ago, you can't have two kohanim g'dolim doing chafina because it needs to be identical. The first chafina, the second chafina has to be identical. Tashma. The wrong corn bluth. What's your mother's name?
Esther.
No, your father. Chas v'shalom. I'm saying, who's Nifti? Father. Lili nishmas, the wrong corn bluth's father. What's the name? Uri Ben Mattisyahu. So, Daf Mem Tes Amud Beis, sponsored by the wrong corn bluth. Ilu nishmas, his father, Uri Ben Mattisyahu. Ketzad Yosef. Oiches is habazach beroshe etzba'isov. Here's the bazach. Beroshe etzba'isov, like this. V'yesh oimrim b'shinov. Some say, put your teeth over here. Umale begudoloi at shemigas l'bein atzili yada. And you go like this until you get to hold it with your elbows. Maybe the picture is better. This is from the Mesifta, a little dark, but here it is. He's holding it with his fingers, and they're not by his elbows yet. And with his fingers, with his thumbs, he moves the kli backwards until the handle rests between his elbows. Then he takes the kli, and with his thumbs he turns it until it empties out into his hands. Now, he wouldn't be able to take, he's not even holding the coals anymore, right? The coals are on the floor. But he cannot take his two hands and go like this into the cup. He won't get everything. So he needs to pour everything, every single granule into his hands. And the only way to do it is to, and he doesn't have an extra hand to pour it, so he has to pour it with his thumbs. Says the Gemara B'Tzoivra. Then, he has one shot. But you know what? He's practicing all week long in Beis Haftinos. That's exactly what he's doing, because this is the hardest thing in the Beis Hamikdash. And that's why he was practicing over and over. Practice makes perfect. One granule on the floor, done. V'Tzoivra, then they pull him out with that string. You a little mess up? Next guy tries it out. No, I'm kidding. That's not why you die, but Second stringer. You bring in the second stringer. Very good. All right. The chayzer machzira l'toy chafnav. B'tzayvra. So what do you do with this now? Like a tractor. Like you go, it just pours out onto the coals. You don't do it nicely. Why? If I pour it out really quickly, it's going to take time for the smoke, for the heat to overcome the ketairis, and until it's going to start smoking, the kohen gadol can get out of there. Imagine if you do it slowly, then also he's going to get hit by that unbelievable. It's a smell, a fragrance that you smell all the way to your richai. It could kill him. He's going to run, and he has to do it slow until he gets it all out. It's going to be terrible. Mifazra, and some say the opposite. You spread it out slowly. I want the smoke to hit him. I want him to run for his life. I don't want him to spend time there. I don't want him to look around and see the walls of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. I don't want him to gaze. I want him to be out. And also, I don't want Klal Yisrael to be worried about him. Is he alive, dead? So everything is quick. This is the hardest avoid in the Mikdash. Ask the Gemara, Zuhi v'suloi. So we had the same question before, same answer. Well, we know there's other things. Vayika Malika, to shecht a bird with your finger is very difficult. Vayika Kmitza, the Kmitza, not just the regular Kmitza that I did last night, that oh, you missed it. I was doing Kmitza and nothing was left in my hand. And we're like, what's going on here? This must be the wrong stuff. Then I realized I didn't add oil to it. I didn't add water. So of course, yeah, okay, a little bit of a bizayin, amaritzas, but okay, migay weiter, but now we're talking about the kmitza of the tough bread. And we said to go like this, just to move your pinky is very difficult, at least for me, especially the broken one from basketball. So you go like this, and you have to break the bread, but not just break it like a laser beam, like a sharp knife, that nothing pokes out, nothing goes in. That's a very tough one. It's one of the very difficult ones. But the bottom line, again, don't lose track. What do you see from all of this? So you see from here, we're talking about all this. Where is this? Where does this take place? Inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. This is the second chafina. So it says Mefurish, this is the second chafina. You're asking me if there's two chafinas or one chafina, does the kohen gadol just do it once and that's in the azar, and then he goes through a whole process how he should do it with his thumbs and this and that. Second chafina, shma mina. It's a great ride. Ibailu. Shachav ameis. He did the shchita. The kohen gadol did the shchita on his bull, and then he dies. Maushi kanes acher b'damai. Can the second kohen gadol that's taking over, could he use his blood? He didn't do the shchita. The first kohen gadol did it. Could he use the blood? What's the question? Bipar, and even the blood of the par. Or dilma bipar v'loy b'dam shel par. It has to be the bull, not the blood. What's going on here? Reb Chanina Omer, bipar v'loy b'dam shel par. We're going to have 4 shitas here, 2 and 2. In other words, machlokes. Hillel, what's the answer? Machlokes. Chanina Omer, bipar v'loy b'dam shel par. Rish Lakish Omer, bipar v'afila b'dam shel par. Reb Ami Omar, bipar v'loy b'dam shel par. Yitzchak Omar, what does Reb Yitzchak say? Bipar v'afila b'dam shel par. That bipar means the bull means it's blood also. So even though you don't have a bull, he's dead, but you have his blood. Blood is like a bull. Blood equals bull. Okay. Ask the Gemara, if blood equals bull, we just learned Masechtas Pesachim. We spoke a lot about this. That you need to register to the Korban Pesach. So I can register, and then I find out that my friend who lives closer has another Korban Pesach. I tell the first guy, sorry, I want to register by his. You keep on doing this. Until what point? Until the Shechita. If blood equals bull, so blood equals sheep. So why is it until the Shechita? It's until there's no more blood. If there's blood around, I could change my mind as long as they didn't perform the avoid in the blood. There's still a sheep around. Says the Gemara, you're right. Theoretically, that should be a good way to do it. The Gemara didn't make it up over here. The Gemara in Pesachim already discusses this. That miyais, hey, ches are interchangeable. It means that the sheep is still alive. Masav Marzutra. We're talking about Petach Hamar. So it says in the pasuk, V'chol Petach Hamar. I have a firstborn donkey. I have to redeem it, just like in the same pasuk. Actually, it talks about a human being that we have to redeem humans, a firstborn human. V'chol Petach Hamar. It's the first one. Tivde b'seh. How do you do it? With a sheep. V'im loy sifta v'arafta. And if you don't do it, you have to chop. Question is, Masav Marzutra. Ein poidim loy be'egel v'loy b'chaya v'loy b'shchuta. I cannot use a calf. It has to be a seh. V'loy b'chaya, and not with the animal. V'loy b'shchuta. And I cannot take a sheep that's shechted. Yeah? Your stuff that you have in the freezer for me. You cannot give that to a kohen and say that's instead of a donkey. V'loy b'treifa. And not a sheep that's going to die this year. V'loy b'klayim, and not a sheep that's not a sheep. It's like half sheep, half goat. It has a father a goat and a mother a sheep. That's not a sheep. It says in the Torah, seh. V'loy b'koi, I used to say kvi, and all these shiva guys say kvi. But ever since the art scroll, they ruined it for us. It's very hard for me to do. I'm going to have to say koi. The art scroll knows what it's talking about, right? How did you say yeshiva, Menachem? It's kvi, you know? You said koi? Really? Anybody here say kvi in yeshiva? You said kvi? Leiva says kvi. Wow. You guys didn't know how to read.
It was a half plant, half animal. You did a fourth back row.
Half what?
Half plant, half animal.
No, not plant.
Plant.
No, it's a behem and a chaya. Behem and a chaya. It's a behem and chaya. It has both. It has a mother, a father that's a goat, and a mother that's a deer. So it's half and half. A unicorn. We did? Back when we were learning? By us and shiur or by you? Okay. So you cannot use a koi. You can't use a behema. You can't use it. You can't use the. Fine. Elobis. What's the Gemara's kasha here? Because look at the list. In the list, it says seh. It has to be a sheep. But also in the list it says shchuta. You cannot use a shchuta. But if you're telling me that shchuta is like the dam of this is like the animal itself, so why can't you use shchuta? What's wrong with shchuta? Now, I just want to point out an amazing halacha that we learned in Peretz, that the Olam who didn't learn Peretz, it's going to be a tremendous, beautiful chiddush, and who those who learn Peretz, it's going to be a good chazara. Question, could you do pidyon chamar with deer meat? Seems no. The answer is of course you could. Of course you could. You just can't use something that has less value than the donkey. If you want to use deer meat, or you want to use a shchuta, you want to use this, you could use anything. Of course, you could use the entire list, but it has to have the value. Seh has a special property in it that even if it's only valued at $10 and the donkey is worth $25,000, I could use the seh. Okay, just as a reminder, as chazara. Says the Gemara, okay, that's a special halacha over there by Pidyon Chamar that I learned Xer Shava from Korban Pesach. If you're going to learn Xer Shava, so you have to learn everything. Then it has to be a very specific age. It has to be 1 year old. It has to be a male. I can't have any mum. It says no. It could be a few things. It has to be a seh, but it could be more than a year old. It could be in a keva. So maybe I should be able to use a shachut and a treifa. You can't use a deer. You can't use those things. But from the seh, let's take things in the seh that are not good and say they are good. So it makes sense as the Gemara. If you have a ribu and you have a miyut. So we have to use the riboy for the most logical thing. Most logical thing is a live animal that's not a year old. It's a little bit more than a year. Don't say that the riboy comes to say that even a shechted animal. So if I'm gonna be made, I'm gonna be made the shechted and the treifa which doesn't have life, and I'm gonna be marba the more than a year and in a keva. Have a wonderful day. אני רוצה לשמור יד, אני מגיע מועד. נתפס לך, למדתי בבית.
Belly, you're muted.
Yeah, where's the
Oh,
belly? I
not
didn't even know
muted anymore.
Good morning.
Rabitzkowitz is on our boy side. Rabitzkowitz is on. How you doing?
How you doing, Eli?
I don't think we ever schmoozed on. I feel like I know you from. I mean, I know you from Filas Kalim and everything.
Do you remember or no? You don't remember?
I don't remember you. I remember there's somebody else there. I don't remember
Oh,
you.
first you remember Shmooze. We work for Shmooze. Remember now?
Oh, I know. I
And I remember telling you, don't stick your hand in. You went, I got it.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a 3rd-degree burn. Remember that? It was terrible.
Very bad. You were all bandaged up.
Good morning,
Remember Evudel Lederman? He was the Paisik. He came in the next day. He looked. He goes, "What did you do?" And he turns to me. He goes, "You take over." And I said, "I don't know." He said, "I'll teach you."
Maybe you will remember this. I remember a story. A Syrian lady walks in, and she gave us 6 Kiddush cups made out of pure gold.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
It was crazy. It was like, I've never seen anything like it. Pure gold Kiddush cups. 6 of them.
That
I
one
don't know
lady,
how it worked, but it's
she with a whole bunch of tin foils, all silver foil pans. She wanted to kosher everything, brand new.
yeah. She wanted to capture every.
Brand new.
Those were the days. Yeah.
Remember my brother too, Yitzi from Chicago, from married Fishbane, right?
Who?
My brother Yitzi married Fishbane from Chicago.
Oh, he has a yeshiva.
Oh.
Yeah, he has yeshiva. Now you're putting. Now you're putting. Right?
Now I'm hopping. Yes. So maybe.
Hey, Eli.
Wow, there's a bunch of new guys on. Shalom Aleichem, new guys. Yosef Elbam, Shalom Aleichem. Who else?
Valley.
Oh, Moshe After's on. Moshe After. S.Y. Kobels. I learned that music. Hi, Shalom Aleichem.
Red Ellie from Chicago.
Belly, Eli Tropper's trying to get your attention.
Valley, Ellie.
Yeah, Eli.
Eli Tropper, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Oh,
I just have
I've never seen you in such a good mood before. It's unbelievable.
Famous guy tonight. Famous
I
guy.
have one question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Who wrote those 3 emails?
No, there wasn't 3, it was 2. I read one today. The other one is private. It says, do not read.
Okay.
Basically, it was it's your honor, but I can't read it. What should I do?
Yes, go ahead. Who wrote it?
Not going to take no for an answer.
We're getting serious here.
Warrant of secrecy there.
Warrant of secrecy, but they like you. Whoever it is, loves you. You have big fans.
You know who wrote it? Who wrote it?
I don't know. You have big fans. Big fans. It's anonymous. Anonymous,
huh?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get killed tomorrow.
Cut him some salami.
What
I
happened?
know who it is.
Let him cut his own salami.
Oh. Who is it?
Cut his own salami. Don't stick up.
Tell me. Let's see if you know.
I'll have mustard on mine.
Rivka Tropper.
Nah. Rivka Tropper. I don't get emails from women.
Ellie, she listens to share every day.
Really?
Whoa.
Yes.
Ooh.
So,
Now
why
you watch
did you write me an email? Woman, how is she related to you?
She's my father's cousin.
Your father's cousin. Is she a bubby? She's a bubby or like?
Yeah, she's a bubby.
No.
Probably her. It's probably her grandson who wrote that email.
Grandson, whoever it is, loves you. We have to find out. We can do some research, figure it out.
I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, me too. I was laughing so hard last night. I had a shiur with Shmuley Bernhardt. I told him all about it. I was laughing. Whew, I was so excited about it.
Well, not to mention that now my secret is out to the public.
Oh boy.
What,
hello,
that you're the back of my
Ellie,
chair?
you don't realize you've been famous for a while already.
I know I have, and I don't know if you noticed this, but my iPad it still says iPad.
Ramelli.
Listen, there's only one iPad in the world, and that's you. You could get away with it. You know, Gershon lets you in at the end of the day. If you were
Really?
anybody else, he wouldn't let you into the room.
Really?
Yeah, look at everybody. Everybody had to change their name because of all the Zoom bombers. But he knows you.
Ellie.
They kept me waiting.
Ellie.
Yeah.
Oh, I just left my
Whoa,
dish.
first of all, you're sideways. Hard to see you. You're sideways. Is there any way to flip over? Oh, where
Ramelli.
are you? You still in Meshbish?
We just left my dish now.
Listen, in my head, you look like the Baal Shem Tov. I don't know what the Baal Shem Tov look like.
I'll send you a picture soon. It'll give you a smile.
Yeah? Good.
A good one,
you're on the
real
bus.
good one.
You're on a bus?
On the bus now, yes.
How many guys on the bus are learning the daf?
Eli Dykeman was doing the daf.
Well,
Let's see the bus.
I hear Eli Dykeman in the background.
Oh, das heißt ein Boss mit der Tisch.
Oh,
Hey, Ellie.
Wow.
Guys.
Ellie.
but the whole bus listening to the shiur?
Oh yeah, you bet.
Well, wow, when the buses start doing shiur,
Where's your shiur? We have to sign them all up.
It started in Lakewood and now it's all the way in Ukraine.
They're all learning the daf.
Hey, Ellie. Guess what time
You're
it is?
competing with the Lakewood Charter, with the Lakewood
Lakewood shuttle.
Hey, Ellie.
Kosher in the hotel. That was the best part of the movie.
Ellie.
Wieso ausgebaut alles geht? Steuer.
Ellie.
Ramelli.
What are you talking about?
Ellie.
Telling you,
You're middle of the conversation. You're like just gonna hack
what I
something.
mean, it was the
Okay.
best.
This is shiur.
Ramelli.
I so muted him.
Ramelli.
Somebody muted us.
Ramelli.
You're causing them to mute us. Yeah.
Ramelli, you have a good friend on and you don't even realize.
A good?
You have your good friend on and you don't even realize.
Rip Shmelka, you?
No, I'm a
really.
good friend, but that you realize.
So who?
I davened with him today, your neighbor.
Let's see if I can find him. My
Hey,
God,
Ellie.
He just disappeared. He got
Veer,
shot.
I disappeared.
He just, oh, no, he's there. He's there. Say hi.
Ellie.
Who?
Look.
Oh,
He's
yes,
waving his finger.
Rubenstein.
He's waving his finger.
Yossi,
What, Yossi Rubenstein?
Yeah.
I see him every day. Daven Shachar right behind me. He's gonna be.
I am. We davened together today. And I asked him
Oh, he's in
where
New
he
York?
lives.
Yes, I am.
Ah,
He was in the shield. I asked
I
him
didn't know you guys know each other.
where he lives.
I just
Ellie.
didn't.
Ellie.
Everybody knows Yossi.
Very nice.
Ellie.
Look, over
Ellie,
there,
is
right
my
now.
son is my son behind you today?
Don't forget to bring me back Folgers, Rubenstein.
Oh man, there's
Ellie.
Yeshua. Where is he?
Come over, baby.
Yeshua, when
Yossi,
you
next
get
time
me
you
my
see-
big cups, you can get your Folgers. I'll bring you
Yossi.
back better than Folgers.
Yossi, do me a favor. Next time you see Yeshua, when you go back, do me a favor. Give him a big lift. A
Ellie.
lift.
Sure, Folgers.
Ellie.
What's that? We gave Yeshua the credit card, and this is what he bought. So you,
Just one can?
yeah, let me show you what it's
Oh, a big one.
Ellie.
Oh.
Now we're talking.
What size is that thing on?
Kalman.
Ah, Kalman Rubenstein.
There you go.
There he
Ellie.
is.
comes to Shachris, even though you're not there. Shtuk.
Look at that. Okay.
I want to
Okay,
take
good.
that in the room. I got to talk
He knew
about it.
Yossi was going to check up on him.
Ellie.
Was he by the shiur also?
By the door.
Rebelli.
See?
I can see who's listening, who's not. Yeah.
So, Robelli, don't ever
Guess
say I
what- guess
never
what time
booked
it is?
somebody to Zoom.
First, bring yourself. I was wondering what you're doing here. I haven't seen you in 3 months. All of a sudden, he's on Zoom. Listen, I
Ellie.
want to tell you something
Yossi
else.
Always
gets the
on,
credit.
baby.
I'm
I'm always on.
This 3-4 days ago, Yossi Rubenstein's son was sitting next to me during davening, and I finished my X-ray, and I look over, and I see Yossi's son pull out a little piece of paper that's all smushed up from his pocket, and I couldn't help myself, so I leaned over to see what's going on, and he opens it up, and he's by Rifaenu, and he was saying the names of the victims of the people from Iran that are sick. Couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable.
A little
Sadiq.
kid. He's a little kid. What, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. How old is he? 12? How old?
11.
He's 11 years old, and he's busy, and his father didn't even know about it. It's not that he asked his father how to get, he figured out by himself how to get the newspaper. He clipped it out, all the names, and he put it in his pocket, and he did it like he thought nobody sees. I happened to be taller and right next to him, so I saw it. He put it in his hand. He said all the names and then stuffed it right back in his pocket. I was watching him. He made sure that nobody would see.
Beautiful.
Eli.
Yeah.
Reflection of his father. You see that?
How you doing?
Schmalky.
I gotta go. I didn't have. It's 8:17. I'm a sugar. Bye.